In the early years of the Civil War in Georgia, it was largely protected from the military's hostile, leaving it free to ship arms, munitions, food supplies to Confederate troops on the battlefield to the north. One big part of the extended rail system to attempt a daring effort to disrupt the 138-mile rail line connecting Atlanta and Chattanooga. Along with 19 Union soldiers dressed as civilians, Andrews arrived in Marietta April 12, 1862. Here they boarded a northbound train pulled by the General, with burning locomotive built in 1855. At Big Shanty, that's the town, the train stopped so passengers and crew could eat breakfast. Andrews used the brake to uncouple the engine, wood tender, and 3 boxcars from the passenger cars. They then sped off with the goal of damaging as many W&A tracks and rail bridges as possible. Hearing the General steam out, Conductor William Fuller and 2 W&A employees ran out of the hotel dining room and pursued the stolen train by foot for several miles. Ultimately, Fuller would commandeer the locomotive Texas, and joined by Confederate soldiers finally catch Andrews' raiders. A race Joel Chandler Harris later characterized as the boldest adventure of the Civil War. His composition for concert band is based upon this fascinating event in American history. It was composed in the fall of 1999 for the Taft School Concert Band under the direction of Aaron Holt. It's dedicated to Taft Musical in commemoration of the performance at the University of Georgia in December of the same year. So, this is the actual account. So, just want to sit back and listen. The great locomotive train, The great locomotive chase in Georgia by the Reverend William Henry, second of 5 volunteers, one of the raiders. The railroad raid in Georgia in the spring of 1862 has always been considered high among the striking and novel events of the Civil War. At that time, General O. M. Mitchell, under whose authority it was organized, commanded Union forces in Middle Tennessee, consisting of a division of Bull's army. The Confederates were concentrating at Corinth, Mississippi, and Grant and Bull were fancied by different routes toward that point. Mitchell's orders required him to protect Nashville and the country around, but allowed him latitude in the disposition of his division, which, attachments and garrisons, numbered nearly 17,000 men. His attention had long been turned toward the liberation of East Tennessee, which he, President Lincoln, also earnestly desired, and which would achieve strike the most damaging blow at the resources of the rebellion. A Union army once in possession of East Tennessee would have the inestimable advantage found nowhere else in the South of operating in the midst of a friendly population and having at hand abundant supplies of all kinds. Mitchell had no reason to believe that Corinth would detain Union armies much longer than Fort Donelson had done, and was satisfied as soon as it had been captured. The next movement would be eastward toward Chattanooga, thus throwing its own division in advance. He determined, therefore, to press in the heart of the enemy's country as far as possible, occupying strategical points before they were out to defend it. On the 8th of April, 1862, the day after the Battle of Pittsburgh Landing, of which Mitchell had received no intelligence, he marched swiftly southward from Shelbyville and seized Huntsville in Alabama on the 11th of April, and then sent a detachment westward over Memphis and Charleston Railroad to open railway communications with the Union Army in Pittsburgh Landing. Another detachment, commanded by Mitchell in person, arrived on the same day, 70 miles by rail south, directly into the Army and the enemy's territory, arriving unchecked within 30 miles of Chattanooga. In 2 hours' time, he could have reached that point, the most important position in the West, with 2,000 men. Why did he not go? The story of the railroad raid is the answer. The night before breaking camp at Shelbyville, Mitchell sent an expedition secretly into the heart of Georgia to cut the railroad communications in Chattanooga to the south and east. This fortune of this attempt had a most important bearing upon his movements and will now be narrated. In the employ of General Buell was a spy named James J. Andrews, who had rendered valuable services in the first year of the war and had secured the confidence of the Union commanders. In March 1862, Buell had sent him secretly with 8 men to burn bridges west of Chattanooga. But the failure of expected cooperation defeated the plan, and Andrews, after visiting Atlanta and inspecting the whole of the enemy's lines in that vicinity and northward, had returned ambitious to make another attempt. His plans for the second raid were submitted to Mitchell, and on the eve of the movement from Shelbyville to Huntsville, the latter authorized him to take 24 men secretly to enter the enemy's territory and by means of capturing a train, burn the bridges on the northern part of the Georgia State Railroad as well as on the East Tennessee Railroad where it approaches at the Georgia State line, thus completely isolating Chattanooga, which was then virtually ungarrisoned. The soldiers for the expedition, of whom the writer was one, were selected from 3 Ohio regiments belonging to General J.W. Silas's brigade, being simply told that they were wanted for secret and very dangerous service. So far as no, not a man chosen to find that prestigious honor. Our uniforms were exchanged from ordinary Southern dress, and all arms except revolvers were left at camp. On the 7th of April, by the roadside, about a mile east of Shelbyville, in the late twilight, we met our leader. Taking us a little way from the road, he quietly placed before us the outlines of the romantic and adventurous plan, which was to break into small detachments of 3 or 4, journey eastward to the mountains, and then work southward, traveling by rail after we went well within the Confederate lines and finally met Andrews at Marietta, Georgia, more than 200 miles away, in the evening of the 3rd day after this time. When questioned, we were to profess ourselves as Kentuckians, going to join the Southern Army, because believe it or not, Kentucky was part of the Union Army back then. And nowadays, we don't know. On the journey, we were a good deal annoyed by the swollen streams and the muddy roads consequent on 3 days of almost ceaseless rain. Andrews was led to believe that Mitchell's column would be inevitably delayed, as we were expected to destroy the bridges that very day that Huntsville was entered. He took responsibility of sending word to our different groups that our attempt would be postponed 1 day, from Friday to Saturday, April 12th. This was a natural but most lamentable effort of judgment. One of the men was belated and did not join us at all. 2 others were very soon captured by the enemy, and through their true character were not detected. They were forced into the Southern Army, and 2 who reached Marietta failed to report at the rendezvous. Thus, we were assembled very early in the morning, and when in Andrews' room at the Marietta Hotel for final consultation, before the blow was struck, we were but 20, including our leader. So they went from 24 and dropped down to 20. All preliminary difficulties had been easily overcome, and we were in good spirits, but some serious obstacles had been revealed on our ride from Chattanooga to Marietta the previous evening. The railroad was found to be crowded with trains and many soldiers among passengers. The station, Big Shanty, at which the capture was to be effected, had recently been made a Confederate camp. To succeed at our enterprise, it would be necessary first to capture the engine in a guarded camp, with soldiers standing around spectators, and then run it from 100 to 200 miles, the enemy's country, and to seize overpower all trains that would be met, a large contract for 20 men. Some of our party found the chances of success so slight under existing circumstances that they urged the abandonment of the whole enterprise. But Andrews declared his purpose to succeed or die, offering each man, however, the privilege of withdrawing from the attempt, an offer no one was the least disposed to accept. Final instructions were given, and we were hurried to the ticket office in time for the northward bound main train and purchased tickets for different stations along the line in the direction of Chattanooga. We are at time. I will continue reading next week. There's a lot to read.
Man!
According to the timetable, of which Andrews had secured a copy, there were 2 trains to be met. These presented no serious hindrance to our attaining high speed, for we could tell just where to expect them. There was also a local freight not down on the timetable, but which could not be far distant. Any danger of collision with it could be avoided by running according to the schedule of the captured train until it was passed. Then, at the highest possible speed, we could run the Ostenula and Chickamauga bridges, lay them in ashes, and play them through Chattanooga to Mitchell at Huntsville, or wherever eastward to that point he might be found, arriving long before the close of day. It was a brilliant prospect, and so far as human estimates can determine, it would have been realized had a day been Friday instead of Saturday. On Friday, every train had been on time, the day dry, and the road perfect in order. Now, the road was in disorder, every train far from behind time, and 2 extras were approaching us. But these unfavorable conditions, we knew nothing and pressed confidently forward. We stopped frequently. At one point, tore up the track, cut telephone wires, and loaded on cross ties fused and bridge burning. Wood and water were taken without difficulty. Andrews telling, very coolly, the story to which he had adhered throughout the run, namely that he was an agent of General Beauregard running an impress power train through that officer at Corinth. We had no good instruments for track racing, and we had intended rather to depend on fire, but the amount of time spent in taking up rail was not material at this stage of our journey, as we easily kept on the time of our captured train. There was a wonderful exhilaration in passing swiftly by towns and stations through the heart of an enemy's country in this manner. It possessed just enough of the spice of danger in this part of the run to render it thoroughly enjoyable. The slightest accident to our engine, however, or a miscarriage in any part of our program would have completely changed the conditions. At Etowah Station, we found Yonah, an old locomotive by an iron company, standing with steam up, but not wishing to alarm the enemy till the local freight had been safely left, we left it unharmed. Kingston, 30 miles from the standing point, was safely reached. A train from Rome, Georgia, on a branch road, had just arrived and was waiting for the morning mail, our train. We learned that the local freight would soon come also, and taking the sidetrack, waited for us. When it arrived, however, Andrew saw to his surprise and chagrin that it bore a red flag, indicating another train not far behind. Stepping to the conductor, he boldly asked, "What does it mean that the road is blocked in this manner, and when I have orders to take this power to Beauregard without a minute's delay?" The answer was interesting, but not reassuring. Mitchell has captured Huntsville, and it's said to be coming to Chattanooga, and we are getting everything out of there. He was asked by Andrews to pull the train a long way down the track out of the way, and promptly obeyed. It seemed an exceedingly long time before the expected extra arrived, and when it did, it bore another red flag. The reason given was that the local, being too great for one engine, had been made up in short time. This was terribly vexatious, yet there seemed nothing to do but wait. To start out between the sections of an extra train would be port destruction. There were already 3 trains around us, and our many passengers and others were growing curious about the mysterious train which had arrived on time of the morning mail manned by strangers. So they're in enemy territories. They've gone through, and they've snuck this train in, and they're trying to wait till the tracks are cleared so they can keep going and destroying things. But all these other trains are coming along, and everybody's like, "So what's that train parked there?" Okay? So that's basically what's happening. For an hour and 5 minutes from the time we arrived at Kingston, we remained in this most critical position. The 16 of us were shut up tightly in a boxcar containing Beauregard's ammunition, hearing sounds outside but unable to distinguish words, and perhaps the most trying position. Andrews sent us one by one of the engineers a cautious warning to be ready to fight the police in case the uneasiness of the crowd led them to make any investigation, while he kept himself near the station to prevent the sending off of any alarming telegram. So tolerable was our suspense that the order for a deadly conflict would have been felt as a relief. But the assurance of Andrews quieted the crowd until the whistle of the expected train from the north was heard. Then, as it glided up the depot, past the end of our sidetrack, we were off without more words. Andrews quieted the crowd until the whistle of the expected train from the north was heard. Then it glided up to the depot, past the end of our sidetrack. We were off without more words. But unexpected danger had risen behind us. Out of the panic of Big Shanty, 2 men emerged, determined if possible to foil the unknown captors of their train. There was no telegraph station and no locomotive at hand with which to follow, but the conductor of the train, W.A. Fuller, and Anthony Murphy, foreman of the Atlanta Railway machine shops, who had been on board Fuller's train, started on foot after us as hard as they could run. Finding a handcar, they mounted it and pushed it forward until the end of Etowah, where they ran on the break we had made in the road, and we were precipitated down the embankment into the ditch. Continuing with more caution, they reached Etowah and found Yonah, which was at once pressed into service, loaded with soldiers who were at hand and hurried with flying wheels toward Kingston. Fuller prepared to flight at that point, for he knew the tangle of the extra trains and the lateness of the regular trains, and did not only 4 minutes after he arrived, he found himself stopped by 3 long, heavy trains of cars headed in the wrong direction. To move them out of the way so as to pass would cause a delay, and he was inclined to reform. So, abandoning his engine, he and Murphy ran across the Rome train, an unoccupied engine and 1 car, pushed forward with about 40 armed men. As the Rome branch connected with the main road above the depot, he encountered no hindrance, and it was now fair race. We were not many minutes ahead. 4 miles from Kingston, we again stopped and cut the telegraph line. While trying to take up rail at this point, we were greatly startled. One end of the rail was loosened, and 8 of us were pulling at it, when, distant but distinct, we heard the whistle of a pursuing engine. With a frantic pull, we broke the rail and tumbled over the embankment with the effort. We moved on, and in Adairsville, we found a mixed train, freight and passenger train, waiting. But there was an express on the road that had not yet arrived. We could not afford no more delay and set out for the next station, Calhoun, at terrible speed, hoping to reach the point before the express, which was behind time, and it should arrive. The 9 miles which we had to travel were left behind in less than the same number of minutes. The express was just pulling out, but hearing our whistle backed before us, and so we were able to take the sidetrack. It stopped, however, in such a manner as completely to close up the other end of the switch. The 2 trains, side by side, almost touched each other, and our precipitous arrival caused natural suspicion. Many searching questions were asked, which had to be answered before we could get the opportunity of proceeding. We, in the boxcar, could hear the altercation, and we were almost sure a fight would be necessary before the conductor would consent for us to pull up in order to let us out. Here again, our position was most critical, for the pursuers were rapidly approaching. Fuller and Murphy saw the obstruction of the broken rail in time to prevent a wreck by reversing their engine. But the hindrance was for the moment insuperable. Leaving all their men behind, they started for a second foot race. Before they had gone, they had met the train they had passed at Adairsville and turned it back for us. At Adairsville, they dropped the cars, and with the locomotive and tender loaded with armed men, they drove forward at the highest speed possible. They knew that we were not many minutes ahead, interested to overhaul us before the express train could pass safely. But Andrews had told the power story again with all his skill and had added a direct request in peremptory form to have the way open before him, which the Confederate conductor did not see fit to resist. And just before the pursuers arrived at Calhoun, we were again underway, stopping once more to cut wires and tear up the track. We felt a thrill of exhilaration to which we had long been strangers. The track was now clear before us to Chattanooga, and even west of the city, we had good reason to believe that we would not find another train in the way until we had reached Mitchell's lines. If one rail could now be lifted, we would be in a few minutes at Ostenallo Bridge, and with that burned, the rest of the track would be little more than simple manual labor, with the enemy absolutely powerless. We worked with a will. But in a moment, the tables were turned. Not far behind us, we heard the scream of a locomotive bearing down upon us at lightning speed. The men on board were in plain sight and were well armed. 2 minutes, perhaps 1, would have removed the rail at which we were toiling. Then the game would have been in our own hands, for there were no other locomotives beyond that could turn back for us. But the most desperate efforts were in vain. The rail was simply bent, and we hurried back to our engine and darted away, while remorsefully after us thundered the enemy. Now the contestants were in clear view, and the most exciting race followed. Wishing to gain little time for the burning of the Ostenallo Bridge, we dropped the car, and shortly after another, but we were picked up and pushed again ahead to Resica Station. We were obliged to run over the high trestles and covered bridge at that point without a pause. This was a failure in the work assignments. The Confederates could not overtake and stop us on the road, but their aim was to keep close behind so we might not be able to damage the road or take in water. In the former they succeeded, but not the latter. Both engines were put at the highest rate of speed. We were obliged to cut the wire after every station passed in order that an alarm might not be sent ahead. We were consistently strove to throw in our pursuer off the track or to obstruct the road permanently in some way so that we may be able to burn the Chickamauga bridges. All these Native American terms, which is killing. Still ahead. The The chances seemed good that Fuller and Murphy would be wrecked. We broke out at the end of our last boxcar and dropped cross ties on the track as we ran, thus checking their progress and getting far enough ahead to take the wood and water to separate stations. Several times we almost lifted a rail, but each time coming of the Confederates within rifle range compelled us to desist and speed on. Our worst hindrance was the rain. The previous day, Friday, had been clear with a high wind. On such a day, a fire would have been easily and tremendously effective, but today, a bridge could be burned with only an abundance of fuel and careful nursing. Thus, we sped on mile after mile in this spiritual chase, around curves and past stations, and seemingly endless perspective. Whenever we lost sight of the enemy beyond the curve, we hoped that some of our obstructions had been effective in throwing him from the track, that we would see him no more. But at each long reach backward, the smoke was again seen, and a shrill whistle was like the scream of a bird of prey. The time could not have been so very long, for the terrible speed was rapidly devouring the distance, but with our nerves strained at the highest tension, each minute seemed an hour. On several occasions, the escape of the enemy from being wrecked seemed little less than miraculous. At one point, a rail was placed across the track so skillfully on a curve that it was not seen, so the train ran upon it at full speed. Fuller says that they were terribly jolted and seemed to bounce altogether from the track, but lighted on the rails in safety. Some of the Confederates wished to leave a train which was driven at a reckless rate, but their wishes were not gratified. Before reaching Dulce, we urged Andrews to turn back and attack the enemy, laying an ambush so as to get into close quarters that our revolvers might be on equal terms with their guns. I have little doubt that if this had been carried out, it would have succeeded. But Andrews, whether because he thought the chance of wrecking or obstructing the enemy still good, or feared that the country ahead had been alarmed by a telegram around the Confederacy by way of Richmond, merely gave the plan his sanction without making any attempt to carry it into execution. Dalton was passed without difficulty, and beyond we stopped again to cut wires and obstruct the track. It had happened that a regiment was encamped not 100 yards away, but they did not attack us. Fuller had written a dispatch to Chattanooga and dropped a man with orders to have it forwarded instantly when he pushed on to save the bridges. Part of the message got through and created a wild panic in Chattanooga, although it did not materially influence our fortunes. Our supply of fuel was now very short, and without getting rid of our pursuer long enough to take in more, it was evident that we could not run as far as Chattanooga. While cutting the wire, we made an attempt to get up another rail, but the enemy, as usual, was too quick for us. We had no tool for this purpose except a wedge-pointed iron bar. 2 or 3 bent iron claws for pulling out spikes would have given us such superiority that down to the almost last of our run, we would have been able to escape and go burn all the chick among the bridges. But it had not been our intention to rely on this mode of obstruction, an emergency rendered necessary but by our unexpected delays in the pouring rain. We made no attempt to damage the long tunnel north of Dalton, as our enemies had greatly dreaded. The last hope of the raid was now stalked upon an effort of a different kind. A few more obstructions were dropped on the track, and our speed was increased so that we soon forged a considerable distance ahead. The side and end boards of the last car were torn into shreds, and all available fuel was piled upon it. And blazing brands were brought back from the engine. By the time we approached a log-covered bridge, the fire of the car was fairly started. We uncoupled it in the middle of the bridge, and with painful suspense awaited the issue. Oh, for a few minutes till the work of conflagration was fairly begun. There was still steam pressed enough in our boiler to carry us to the next wood yard, where we could have replenished our fuel by force if necessary, so as to run near to Chattanooga as we deemed prudent. We did not know of the telegraph message which the pursuers had sent ahead, but alas, the minutes were not given. Before a bridge was extensively fired, the enemy was upon us. They pushed right into the smoke and drove a burning car before them to the next sidetrack. With no car left and no fuel, the last scrap having been thrown into the engine upon the burning car, and with no obstruction to drop the track, our situation was indeed desperate. But it might still be possible to save ourselves if we left the train in a body and took a direct course toward Union lines. Confederate pursuers, with whom I have since conversed, have agreed on 2 points: that we could have escaped in the manner here pointed out, and that an attack on the pursuing train would have likely been successful. But Andrews thought otherwise, at least in retaliation to the former plan, and ordered us to jump from the locomotive and dispersing into the woods, each endeavored to save himself. The question is often asked, why did you not reverse your engine and thus wreck one of the following? Wanton injury is not part of our plan, and we could not afford to throw away our engine until the last extremity. When the raiders were jumping off, however, the engine was reversed and driven back, but by that time the steam was so nearly exhausted that the Confederate engine had no difficulty in reversing and receiving the shock without injury. Both were soon at a standstill, and the Confederates, reinforced by a party from the train, which soon arrived on the scene, the express passenger, which had not been turned back to Calhoun, continued the chase on foot. It is easy now to understand why Mitchell paused 3 miles west of Chattanooga. The injured raiders had been forced to stop 18 miles south of the same town, and no flying train met Mitchell with his pilots, and that railroad communications of Chattanooga were destroyed, and the town was panicked and undefended. A few words will give the sequel to this remarkable enterprise. The hunt for the fugitive raiders was prompt, energetic, and successful. Several were captured the same day, and all but 2 within a week. Even those 2 were overtaken and brought back when they were supposed that they were virtually out of danger. Okay, everyone, let's sing. You want to try to read this? I know. No. Smart, just distract. 2 who had reached Marietta but failed to board the train were identified and added to the band of prisoners. Now follows the saddest part of the story. Being in a citizen's dress within enemy lines, the whole party was held as spies. A court-martial was convened, and the leader of the 7 and the remaining 21 were condemned and executed. The others were never brought to trial, probably because of the advance of Union forces and consequent confusion into which the affairs of the Department of the East Tennessee and Georgia were thrown off. Of the remaining 14, 8 succeeded by a bold effort, attacking their guard in broad daylight and making their escape from Atlanta, Georgia, and ultimately reaching Reno. The other 6 who shared in this effort but were recaptured remained prisoners until the latter part of March of 1863, when they were exchanged for a special arrangement made by Secretary Stanton. All of the survivors of this expedition received medals and promotion. The pursuers also received expressions of gratitude from their fellow Confederates, notably from the governor and legislature of Georgia. So, they tried, they failed, but it was exciting.